Hi folks, this is Big Mike, just doing a short video on some of my thoughts after watching last evening Jon Gray on Bloomberg TV. It was a really interesting interview, and I kind of took notes and thought about some of his comments. And by the way, who is Jon Gray? Just wanted to share. So he's the president and chief operating officer of the Blackstone. So Blackstone is one of the largest real estate investment funds on Wall Street. Jon Gray is one of the most successful real estate investors in the country. Yeah, Google him. So he's a super bright guy, and yeah, just was watching him and took some notes, and here are my thoughts. So first of all, it was really interesting questions, and one of the questions came up: why does Blackstone not invest much in the developments? There's heavy developments happening everywhere right now, especially new construction, again, in the multifamily housing, single family development, some commercial, and Blackstone doesn't much participate in the ground up construction. Now, there are obviously exceptions. Instead, they buy typically discounted and distressed assets at the price well below the reconstruction cost. And this was a really important point. One of the examples was the Cosmopolitan Hotel in Las Vegas. When Blackstone bought it, they bought it for almost half of the cost of the construction. So they got in at a phenomenal basis, and it was an outstanding investment. I believe they own it to date. And the reason they do that is Jon's commentary was really simple. Construction could take 2 to 3 years, even longer. A lot of risk associated with construction. And it is definitely very applicable today because the construction costs are inflating very substantially. We are in this age of rapid inflation, supply chain issues. So the issue is even more applicable now than ever before. Ground up projects represent a lot of speculation on what the value is going to be in 2 to 3 years from now. The time and the cost of construction substantially at risk, and there's a lot of unknown and uncertainty related to these type of projects. So a strategy to invest in existing assets, reposition them, do some level of redevelopment, is a lot more attractive in this environment as the costs and the time of construction is so substantial that it's a better strategy. So reflecting on that, thinking about what do we do in the Temple family of funds, and we do a lot of redevelopment investing. We've been heavily investing in the hotel to multifamily conversions and value add multifamily. And listening to Jon, it was just empowerment, affirmation of what we're doing represents a much lower level of risk related to the construction redevelopment, as well as the timeline, and a much higher certainty. Of course, there are risks. So following the investment methodology that I developed, the investment quadrant methodology, there are quadrant 4 deals. These deals are generally speculative in nature. They're growth deals. But there are quadrant 4 deals, and there are quadrant 4 deals. And the ground up projects represent a much higher risk, much more speculation versus the redevelopment, as there's still risk involved, but the path to completed product is much shorter. Typically in the multifamily space, there are 3 ways to get into an asset. One is you build ground up, 2, you redevelop, like a hotel to multifamily conversion, and then redevelop or convert. And then there is a value add where you take an existing asset and then you renovate internally, externally, siding, roofs, and then internally, new kitchen, new bathrooms, new floors, fresh paint, and so on and so forth. So these projects just have a much shorter path to stabilization to go through value add and redevelopment conversion, which is typically can complete the property to full stabilization between 12 to 18 months. But let me go back and chat a little bit more about some of the comments that Jon made, and just sharing some thoughts. So again, Jon was pretty bullish on multifamily housing, especially in light of the inflationary environment. Typically, it's a great hedge against inflation, affordable multifamily. So that was a great comment. There was another question that was asked to him about kind of folks moving from New York to Florida and from California to Texas, or from New York to Texas. Some of those trends, are likely going to stay, and what are his thoughts? And he acknowledged, of course, the fact that Florida and Texas present much lower cost of living than the New York and California. Obviously, they are generally more business-friendly environments, and no state income tax, which is another driver for folks to migrate. So COVID pandemic has benefited those states to a larger extent, as more telecommuting, the move into an environment where you don't have to be in a big city, you can work remotely, has certainly taken place. At the same time, he does believe that New York will come back. New York is a resilient city, and obviously internal politics of New York and other big cities do play a role. But young people are attracted to come for a New York experience, New York life. And as things come back, as New York Broadway, theater, music, and other life comes back, so should the city. So that was an interesting commentary. There's a couple of other quick comments. They were showing their portfolio, and what has changed over time was really interesting observation that Blackstone substantially reduced their position in the office space over the last few years. Again, it wasn't done on purpose that they foresaw COVID, but it was just done more of a as a shift, and it worked out extremely well. So it was an interesting observation that the office space has high degree of uncertainty and risk, as it's unclear whether folks will return to the same level of demand for the office as it was in the past. So investing in office today carries higher degree of risk. Now, Blackstone was actually very proactive about reducing their position in that space. The other area that he thought was a great area to invest, and Blackstone has increased their position in that, is in the industrial and infrastructure. And during COVID, and it's been very obvious, and that those type of assets have done extremely well. The warehouses, the industrial, essentially the post-COVID world is benefiting, or those asset classes are benefiting from the post-COVID world, and it's likely going to continue. So it was another interesting point. And then the final comment that he made many other comments, but I just going through my my notes here, that he believes that centers of technology will continue to drive a lot of talent going into those cities and areas, and some of the Silicon Valley, some of the New York Silicon Valley, number of centers in Massachusetts, Boston area, and specifically he mentioned Austin, Texas, will continue to get an inflow of capital as well as the talent. So those are quick comments, and appreciate you listening. Thank you.